Volkanovski versus Holloway, part 3 has been announced. How did we get here? Because how we got here in the timeline between these two is far more interesting than trying to break down the combinations of Max and the pressure of Volk. These two go out and fight. They're at T-Mobile Arena. Fight comes to an end. I watched it with a group of people, and I turned to those people prior to the decision, asking, who do you think won? And they were saying Volkanovski. They were even saying it as though that was a strange question that I was asking. But I did not believe that. I thought that Max won. And I was a little bit surprised as I keep turning my head. I was saying, Ariel Helwani just comes to mind. Charlie comes to mind. Glenn comes to mind. Who do you think won the fight? They all had Volkanovski. They all had it 3-2. That's not what I saw. I was very interested. When Bruce Buffer got in there and Dana's got the belt behind him, I was on edge of my seat, waiting to hear who the winner was, and sure enough, it was Volkanovski. And I don't think it was even 3-2. I want to say it was like 4-1. At least a judge. Different scores had come in. So they rematched them out. And you do have to ask yourself right there, why are we doing a rematch? If everybody thought that Volkanovski won, why are we doing the rematch? Well, I don't think everybody did think Volkanovski won. I think there was a lot of Chaels out there. The crowd didn't boo. The crowd didn't give a reaction. Max didn't look surprised. Volkanovski didn't look surprised. It was as though when you watch one of those, okay, you guys know who won. Before we get to the judges and we hear the official decision, between the two of you, you know who won. And it looked like they agreed with it. So we get to a rematch. And that was a little bit of a surprise. They go over to Fight Island. These guys are doing a rematch. Like, well, how did we get here except for absolute respect to what Max Holloway has already accomplished? Fine. This time, Max does beat him. Max beats Volk 3-2. Both athletes came out and were different. Max's pressure and Max's volume was different. Volkanovski getting inside and going for those big takedowns, inside trip, specifically in the last round, maybe the most beautiful technique of the whole night, but it was still 3-2 Max, and this one's pretty clear. Wrong. Volkanovski beat him. Now, it's relevant that you hear what I just said, because if you're a Volk fan, you go, Chael, that's a dick move. What are you saying? Well, you must come along this journey with me, or there is no reason to do match 3. Many people who watched that fight, including one of the judges, it was a split decision, did think that Max won. So now we have people like me that are in the camp of Max hasn't only beat this guy, Max has beaten this guy twice. What do we do now? Well, you throw them both in there, you get him some new parity, you let Max show just how great he is, he's got to re-earn his #1 contendership and make sure Volk still has the belt, and then when the dust settles, you look around and go, man, you guys got to go do this a third time. Now, that's a very hard spot for Volkanovski. It does not matter if you agree with what I said or not that Max won those fights. It truly does not matter. Because Volkanovski walked out there, he took the risk, he put in 10 rounds, he went to 2 different continents, he got licensing, he did the training camps, he made the weight class, he did everything that you could do. And even if you get away with one by the skin of your teeth, that is what dreams are made of. If you had the courage and the resolve to walk out there and try the first place, even if you got a gift, that guy's in the rear view and you move on. Which is what Volk did until he couldn't, and it's what Volk did again, and now he's been pulled back in that same spot. And you always have to question motivation, and that's what I'm speaking to. I think it'd be pretty easy for us to put ourselves in Max's shoes and be a motivated guy. Max also showed that by coming back up through the ranks. I mean, that fight with Cater, just by example. Max had showed improvements. He's getting better. He's hungry. He wants that belt back. Volk, on the other hand, to go out and do something a third time that he's already done twice, it's a tough spot. It's not to say he's not motivated. It's a tough spot, and I'm questioning. I will look forward to somebody asking and hearing what Volkanovski's response was. And it may be something very simple, which is, I'm sick and tired of guys like Chael trying to take my success away from me, trying to rewrite history and say somebody else won the fight. I'm tired of that. I'm going to beat this guy twice. I'm going to go beat him a third time. Boom. I'm all done. I've heard my answer. But I still have to wonder it. If you're predicting fights and or parting with your money to go handicap on a fight, you will ask yourself some of these questions that are the intangibles, because we know for sure these guys are super close. We also know for sure, if not for the surprise takedown of Volkanovski, he does not win that second contest. And I have to call it a surprise. I have to call it a surprise because the technique of the inside trip was so incredibly well done. I just didn't know that Volk had that tool. That was about as high level of wrestling as you can get. To find yourself in a body lock position, pull the opponent, hit what's called a cheat step, take your head to the right side, square your hips, and get on top of it. It was just this beautiful technique, and we didn't know that Volkanovski, anybody from New Zealand, in all fairness, I mean, New Zealand does not have a representation that they send to the Olympic Games in the sport of wrestling. You can't get a college scholarship in New Zealand for wrestling. It's one of those things. So when you meet a guy from New Zealand that's pretty damn good at wrestling, you go, man, this guy has really sought this out. This guy has really worked hard. This guy is really looking to grow himself. And if you go look at the last Volkanovski that we saw fight, which was against Brian Ortega, that guy wasn't, you want to talk about heart? You can talk about the best fight, 2021. And we're going to have 4 or 5 of them. That one's going to get mentioned, and maybe it comes out on top, maybe it doesn't. What I'm sharing for you, if you want to talk about heart, the heart of 2021, there is no question what fighter displayed it the most. The answer is Volkanovski, and it was in that fight with Ortega. And we haven't seen Volk have to dig that deep, particularly that many times. Ortega opened that door to push Volk out. All Volk had to do was say, okay, I don't want this belt enough to hold on to it. Take it from me. Multiple times. Volk had too much heart. But as you're looking at this fight, now that I've brought you up upon the time, it's the right fight to make. Max is for sure the top contender. You go put Max in there with a 5, a 7, a 9, Max is going to hurt somebody badly. Max is a dangerous guy. Max is sending the best guys straight to the hospital. So you can't ignore Max, or you can't say, well, we don't do third fights here when there was no change in outcome between the first two. You can't hold your hat on some of those principles when you have a responsibility to make a match where both guys can follow the basic rules, which is to protect themselves at all times. You got to put Max in there with Volk. That's the right fight. But there's a huge but, guys. If Max beats him, they have to fight a 4th time, correct? Now, I get that there's no competitive architecture in place. I get that there's no contracts like they do in boxing. I get that. I'm just talking ethically. If Volk gives the favor to Max 3 times, Max has to give him one back, doesn't he? I'm asking, but doesn't he? Because you could argue that. That's not as simple as you might think. It was Max doing Volk the favor the first time. Now, once the roles were reversed, that was the payback the second. All right, we're even. You gave me a title shot, I'm giving you a title shot. But if I give you another title shot, then you owe me another title. I mean, do you see where this gets weird? And what's to say if they end up going 2-2, how do you not go to number 5? I mean, this could be the lineage. I'm trying to think of some guys that fought. Tiro Gotti, Mickey Ward, fought multiple times. I don't know if anyone's fought more. Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez. I know they fought 4 times. Manny won the first 3. Marquez got all roided up and knocked him out in the 4th. I don't think they went to a number 5. I think, if I remember this correctly, once Marquez cheated the athletic commission, I think Manny just goes, I'm done with you. I don't think they went to number 5. But I only bring that to you because is this what we're on the cusp of? Colby Covington was calling for a best of 7 the other day with Kamaru Usman. But we've never actually seen a best of 7. We've never even seen a best of 5. We've never been promised a best of 3. Like, things are getting very interesting here at 145 pounds. And I think that you've got some real contenders coming up. You're only going to be able to ignore Giga for so long. And Calvin Kattar's going to be given that same opportunity that Giga is. Calvin gets to get right back on the horse. I mean, 145 is absolutely loaded. Then you have Henry Cejudo dipping his toe in the water, starting to bulk up just a little bit, starting to chirp up just a little bit. Where does Henry fit into the whole thing? I don't know that Henry can slide in and go into a title shot. I just don't know that I buy that. I think Henry's going to have to do something first. And it may be as little as 1 match. But I think that Henry's going to have to do that match before he gets in there with those top guys. And whether you see eye to eye with me or not, the only point I'm trying to make has nothing to do with Henry and where he fits into the picture. It has to do with this picture is very beautiful and there's a lot of pieces to it. If you are ever in a division that has this much discussion against who should be next and what do we know, you're in a great division. There's several of them that just absolutely don't have that. So 145 has a lot of moving parts. We're going to see Max versus Volkanovski part 3. It's just hard for me to imagine that if we get a different outcome in part 3 than we did in 1 and 2, that we don't see Max versus Volkanovski a 4th time.